This might surprise you, but globally, more than twice as many people die from cancer than from AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis combined. But 1/3 of all cancer deaths can be prevented. This week on Full Frame, innovative new approaches to preventing and treating one of the most significant threats to global health. I'm Mike Walter in Los Angeles. Let's take it full frame. For 6 years, you knew Fran Drescher as Fran Fine, a cosmetic saleswoman from Queens, New York. Quite by accident, she ended up as a nanny to the children of a wealthy and widowed British Broadway producer in Manhattan. And of course, hysterics ensued.
Everything you need to know about a man you can find right in his card. If there's a box of Midol, keep moving. Corn pads means he lives with his mother. Learned that the hard way. If you see two guys with sweaters tied around their necks buying pesto, save yourself the pain. Good luck on your math test. What's 6 times 12?
72.
Yeah, that sounds right.
In addition to her beloved fictional roles, Fran Drescher has also taken on the vitally important role of cancer survivor and health advocate. She had her own battle with uterine cancer 15 years ago. She was originally misdiagnosed. Her journey took 2 years and 8 doctors before she finally got the correct diagnosis. Fran Drescher wrote about all of this, how she survived cancer and took control of her own health in her book, Cancer Schmancer. Did I hit it? And she is the founder of the Cancer Schmancer Foundation, a national movement to shift the focus from just searching for a cancer cure to prevention and early detection of cancer. Fran Drescher joins me now to talk about the importance of this focus in the global fight against cancer. Thanks so much for coming in.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure.
Okay, 2 years, 8 doctors. I checked when you came in here. The hair's still there because I would have pulled it all out. How did you get through this?
Well, for the first year, I was doing the nanny, so it was really a challenge to wear all the hats that I wore to make the show go and star in it and promote it and still see a lot of different doctors. And I knew that there was something wrong with me. I mean, you start to feel different but all the doctors collectively were convinced that I was perimenopausal and never even tested me for uterine cancer, even though I had classic uterine cancer symptoms. So I, was very, very frustrated by this. And in the second year after the series had already ended, I finally got the test that doctor number 1 said I was too young to take.
Jeez.
And that, confirmed that I did have uterine cancer. And I immediately shifted gears and had to become very proactive and start dictating how I thought, everything should be done. Let's make an appointment for the, the surgery room. I don't want to wait. Let's, let me take whatever tests need to be taken as quickly as possible. And so I really became very proactive and what I now describe as a medical consumer.
Well, talk to us about that, because a lot of people go in and the doctor's the final word. We look to them sort of like gods, and a lot of times they act that way, and you don't want to challenge them. So what did you learn through this experience? I mean, what do people
Well, you
need
must challenge them. They're not gods. And, when the doctor calls and tells you have cancer, at the end of the day, he goes home and eats dinner with his family. You go home and eat your heart out with yours. So whose life is it? It's yours. And no matter what dedication they have to their profession, nobody is going to care as much about you as you and your family. And so you really have to take control of your body, which is something that we always say at Cancer Schmancer. And you have to stop being a patient. The very word patient implies passivity. And you have to be more proactive as a medical consumer. I mean, we put more time and energy into the buying, selling, and repairing of our automobiles than we do our own bodies. And I don't give anyone power of attorney over my money, and I'm certainly not going to do it over my body.
You know, I think some people would have approached this differently than you. I mean, it seems to me it kind of emboldened you. You kind of took over. You know, this I'm gonna drive this car, so to speak. Some people would have just been filled with rage and, geez, God, this happened to me and it's so unfair. Did you struggle with any of that?
Yes, I was very angry. I felt betrayed by the medical community and betrayed by my own body. And my boyfriend at the time said that, you know, it's not serving me well to be this angry. I'm not going to heal, and I really need to let go of that. And that was when I decided to write the book, which became a very cathartic experience. And I wrote 4 drafts of it because the first one was very bitter, but that wasn't the voice that my audience had come to know. So I needed to keep remembering things that happened over the course of this whole odyssey, and also once I got diagnosed and my recovery. And I remembered a lot of really funny things that happened, and that's when I began to heal and become more connected to myself and my body and my purpose. Turning pain into purpose is very healing, and it helps to make sense out of the senseless. You know, you're going to kick and scream and bellow, "Why me, Lord?" But eventually, you have to stop doing that because you're going to hurt yourself worse than you've already been hurt. And you have to just pick yourself up and dust yourself off and play the hand that's been dealt you, and play it as courageously and elegantly as you possibly can.
You know, I think we all are going at 100 miles an hour, and I think you'll agree with me. But when somebody says that C word, it kind of stops you in your tracks. And I don't think we think about our own mortality. I mean, we try not to, at least. You must. Talk to me about all the things that go on when somebody hears that word, especially after you've been going to the doctors for so long and you wanted answers. And there's that rage piece, but there's so much more, isn't it? It's a lot more nuanced, isn't it?
Well, I think that, you know, when somebody says you have cancer, you immediately think, I'm going to die. And it leveled me to the ground, and I had to start facing myself right away because I've always been a person that thought of myself as some kind of a superwoman, somebody that, you know, wasn't a taker but a giver, somebody that didn't need help but gave help. And this was just so difficult to wrap my mind around. I not only needed help, but I needed to be carried a lot of the time. And I had to start facing the fact that I'm not a superwoman, that I walk on the ground with everyone else, that bad things happen to good people, and that I need to be more inclusive with the people that love me and not push them away because I'm uncomfortable receiving. You know, it started to become an opportunity for me to be a more well-rounded woman, quite frankly.
So there was growth through this whole process.
Oh, tremendous growth, tremendous. To be able to ask for help, to be comfortable with my own fragility, to be more of a proactive medical consumer, to turn what I've learned into a movement that helps other people on a daily basis, to go to Washington and lobby for legislation, to get legislation passed by unanimous consent, which means all 100 senators said yes, Fran, to get an appointment of a public diplomacy envoy from the U.S. State Department, a vetted position. None of this would have happened had it not been for my being diagnosed with cancer. And I always say that, you know, I'm not glad I had cancer and I don't wish it on anyone, but I am better for it. And sometimes the best gifts come in the ugliest packages.
You talked about misdiagnosis, mistreatment, and these women flooding up and talking to you. And one of the things I was thinking about when I was researching your story is, if this is happening to Fran Drescher, what about the person who's working in the liquor store, working, you know, as a beautician, and doesn't have an advocate or doesn't have that strong voice? How bad is it for them? And I'm sure you've heard their stories.
It's terrible for them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why Cancer Schmancer has the Fran vans, which roll into low-income neighborhoods like ice cream trucks with mobile mammography equipment, because the women who are the most underserved and are often the low-income women and marginalized minorities. And you know, the impact that this has, because the woman continues to be the caregiver to the child, the spouse, and the elder in almost every home nationwide and worldwide, even if she's a working mother. And so, you know, very often women tend to disregard the early warning whispers when the cancer is most easily cured, because they're more concerned with getting food on the table and getting their kids clothed and off to school. Many of these women in these low-income neighborhoods are single parents to boot. So the last one that they're thinking about is themselves. And what we try and reprogram women into realizing is that, you know, you have to, when you know something is not right, you have to say to yourself, well, this could be nothing, but God forbid it's something. I want to catch it while it's in stage 1 because I need to stay alive for my family. And if you get diagnosed when you're in stage 4, for example, with breast cancer, and you're because you're a low-income woman and you just don't have access, you have a much higher risk of dying. And these are the women that we have to think about because, you know, they hold a very important place within the family and the community. And when you extract her out of that equation, the whole family unit kind of goes into a tailspin. And, you know, the children start not doing as well in school and become, in many cases, counterproductive and sometimes antisocial. So we're trying to avoid that right at the get-go before the mom gets hurt. But the other thing is now with our big prevention program called Detox Your Home, we are trying to create better family health because 1 out of 2 men are predicted to get cancer, 1 out of 3 women. The children of today, for the first time in U.S. history, are anticipated to not live as long as their parents. Babies are being born pre-polluted with 200 to 300 chemicals found in the umbilical cord. And American women's breast milk has the highest percentage of flame retardant in it from any woman on the planet. So we really need to stop and look around and think about what are we putting in our mouth, what are we putting on our skin, one of the largest organs in the body, all of our personal care items. What are we cleaning with and what are we gardening with? And if we can just start with those basic questions, and every time we finish something and we go to the market to buy something new, look for something that's carcinogen-free, look for something that's toxic-free, look for something that's organic, and you will not only be helping yourself and your family to reduce your risk of cancer, but you'll also be saving the planet because we're all one big interdependent living organism.
You know what I like about what you're all about is, you know, everyone's looking over here, cure, but yours is really kind of a 3-legged stool. You know, early detection, prevention, and advocacy. And yet those are they're just as important, if not more important, because this is elusive. Those are real, right?
Well, we have plunked trillions of dollars into finding a cure for cancer since Nixon waged the war. And there's not one cure because it's a reductionist way of trying to solve the problem. Really, what we need to do is identify causation and eliminate it. But sadly, that might cut into a lot of bigwigs, you know, profit margin. And a lot of companies that have deep pockets and very powerful lobbyists in Washington don't really push elected officials to look at causation. And all that we've really accomplished with all the money that we've plunked into trying to find a cure is made pharmaceuticals extremely rich and powerful, and kept hospitals in business. Because as long as sickness is so profitable, there's never going to be a cure. And that's what we as citizens have to wake up and look at. We have to take control of the situation. And because if we use good old-fashioned all-American consumerism, we can dictate manufacturing trends. Because at the end of the day, manufacturers don't want to kill us. They want to sell us. And they'll sell us anything that we're willing to buy, which right now is anything. So they're not incented to change their formulations. And they fight tooth and nail in Washington to not get regulated.
Before we go, I know that you did Broadway. You were talking about sustainable. I don't know how you sustain that. It's grueling, but you had a lot of fun with it. Talk to me about that experience and where do you go from here? Not just what you're doing with your foundation, but in terms of your acting.
Well, I'm always so busy. I've got my my hands in so many different pots. You know, I'm developing another sitcom. I'm developing a Broadway musical. I'm also in you know, the early stages of directing a feature film. And so, you know, I like to be in charge of my own career, and because I'm a writer and a producer and a director, which I benefited by The Nanny, by getting to wear all those hats, I have a lot of choices and a lot of options.
Fran, it's been a delight talking to you. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
You're so welcome. It's my pleasure, too.
Coming up next, what if there was a vaccine to prevent cancer altogether? It's a medical miracle that may be a reality in the very near future.